Hey there, amazing performance management students. Steve Willis here. In this video, we are going to rock limiting factors. I will take you through part A of the difficult past exam question Bellahouston. I'll share with you all the exam technique that you need so you can get a pass on a tricky question like this. Guys, if you find this video helpful, check out my website. I've got more resources to help you pass paper PM. Alrighty guys, let's get started. I've got the question open here on my screen in the practice platform. Before we get started, let's review time management. I recommend you spend 34 minutes per scenario in section C. So that means for Bellahouston parts A and B, a total of 34 minutes. Now, it's going to take some time to read all of this, plan out your template, so when you're getting down to business, I would recommend 1.5 minutes per mark as a rough guideline. So to do part A1, right here we see 7 marks. 7 times 1.5, well, that's 10.5 minutes. So the challenge here really is time management. And one way you can overcome time management is to get really good with the spreadsheet and to develop effective exam spreadsheet skills. I'll share a lot of tips with you in this tutorial. Now that we know how much time we should spend, let's look at the verb. Verb is calculate. They give us a spreadsheet. Wonderful. We've got to calculate an optimum production plan and a total contribution. Friends, this comes from one syllabus area only. That is limiting factors, single limiting factors. If you're well prepared, you should recognize that right off the bat. And before you try this on your own, let me give you a tip. Anytime we're doing limiting factors, first thing we've got to do is determine what resources do we need to complete production. Then we got to figure out how much of each resource do we have. This is often given to you right in the question. Then you'll need to find the products. There are usually 2 or 3. You'll need to find the resources consumed by each product if they want to reach their maximum demand. And that would answer the question, how much of the resources do we need? After we know how much we have of each resource, how much we need of each resource, we can find which one is the scarce resource, which would be the limiting factor. Once we know that limiting factor, we'll then do a ranking of the products on the contribution per unit of scarce resource. After we've ranked the products, we can then do the production plan and contribution. Those are the steps. At this point, I recommend you pause the video, try the question if you haven't already done it, and then continue watching and we'll go through it together. Welcome back. Let's rock this question. First thing we need to know, how much of each product do we need to produce to reach our maximum demand? And we have 3 products. We're going to have a whole bunch of rows and financial and production information. 3 products, so I think it'll be easier to use the products as our column headings. And we see that we've got 2 categories of demand. We've got that basic demand, And then we've got that special order, the run wild order. So I'll make a separate line for that. I'll make a note that RW will denote run wild in the rest of the question. Double click on that column separator to auto enlarge it. If we add those together, we would get a total demand. And after reading the question, I see that we've got materials, labor, and machine time as our resources. Now, spreadsheet tip. I'm going to break things down as much as I can when I make my formulas. If I make long formulas, they're more likely to have an error, they're more difficult to mark, and they're more difficult to copy paste. So when I can break things down, I'm going to do that. So guys, I've got 3 resources. I've got materials, and I'll do it per unit, and then I'll get the total for the total demand. I've got the labor hours per unit, then my total labor hours right below it. Lastly, we've got the machine hours. And we can use a total there. What I've done first is make a template. And this is a great starting place anytime you're doing a numerical question. Lay out the steps before you get started. It'll keep you organized. It will save you time. Now, once I get that total by resource, I could make a column for how much I have, how much I need, and then is it scarce? So my template is finished, and I just plug in the numbers directly from the left panel. I've got a 2300 for the road, 1400 for the spike, 1650 for the trail. And I will quickly use the sum function to add those up. And just copy that over using copy paste, the same control keys that we know and love from Microsoft Excel. Now, materials per unit. I go back to that question in the left panel. I know the cost per unit. I know the total cost, so I can work backwards to get the materials per unit. So I see that that's $7.50 divided by 5. So that's 1.5. 3 divided by 5, 0.6. 0.6. Sorry, 6 divided by 5, 1.2. Labor hours, that's easy. I see a 7 and a 7, and labor hours are $7 per hour, so I know that the first one and the third one are 1. The middle one will be 10.5 divided by 7. Moving to machine hours, we see it's divided by 10. So that's nice. We can see 0.4. 4 divided by 10, 0.4. 2 divided by 10, 0.2. And 3 divided by 10, 0.3. So a little mental math for super easy calculations, not a problem. Now, team, to save time with the totals, I'm going to use an absolute cell reference. So I'm going to go, the total is equal to the material per unit multiplied by total demand. I'm going to lock in the row. If I use a $sign, I can lock in that row. So however I copy that cell, that row is going to stay 5, but the columns will move relatively. So watch this. Copy, paste, 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 paste. saving a lot of time using good spreadsheet technique. Now that I've got the totals by product, I can get the total for the production run. And I think I'm going to swap the order of these columns, the beauty of working in an electronic platform. So how much do I need? That will be the sum of those three cells using the handy dandy amazing sum function. Copy, paste, paste. Now, how much do we have? I'm going to go back to that left panel there, and they tell us right here how much is the maximum available of each resource, and we have 7,200 meters of material. We've got 6,900 of labor, and 1815 of machine time. So the scarce one, guys, is the machine time. Team, we've got the first stage of the question done. We know what is scarce. Now we can move to a ranking on contribution per unit of machine hours to determine our production plan. I'll go down some rows here. I will copy the names of those products again. Just copy those down. And we can get the contribution per unit simply by adding the fixed costs back to the profit. As you know, contribution per unit is the price minus the variable costs. Contribution minus the fixed costs is profit. So we just add the fixed cost per unit back to the profit. And we have 37.5 for the first one, 23.5 for the second one, 32 for the third one. Fixed costs, pulling all of this right out of the question, 4, 6, and 4. Now we just add those together with that handy dandy sum function. Copy that across. That is the contribution per unit for the standard demand for the standard sales. We'll deal with that $8 discount a little bit later. And now we need to grab the machine hours per unit, and we can just grab that whole row right here. Control copy, control paste. And we can do contribution per hour of machine time. That'll be equal to the contribution per unit divided by the machine time. With this information, we can now rank our products. First thing we'll do are spikes. Highest contribution per hour of machine time. Then we'll move on to the trail. Lastly, we'll do the road. We've got the second stage of the question completed. Spreadsheet helping us. Spreadsheet saving us a lot of time. Remember to keep it moving. If you have a slight mistake somewhere, if you're not exactly sure what to do, try your best. You've got to find a scarce resource. You've got to get to a ranking. Even if there's a partial mistake somewhere, you'll still get partial credit. And anything that you do with these numbers going forward will be assumed correct. So as I said, it's better to keep it moving, get through all of the steps, even if there are some possible mistakes, rather than wasting time in only one step trying to make it amazingly perfect. So, last thing we're going to do is a production plan. And we are going to honor the run wild contract first. Let's make a table and let's break it down into as much detail as possible to enable copy pasting and saving time. So my first column can be the unit. Next one can be the hours per unit. Next column can be hours used. Next could be hours remaining, because we have the 18.15 to use up. Once we get that, we can get the contribution per unit, not per hour of machine time, but per unit. If we multiply the number of units that we're going to produce by the contribution per unit, we can get the total contribution. And I see that I left one column out. The beauty of the spreadsheet. Let me just grab all of that with a Control-C, Control-X, Control-Paste with the Control-V, move it over there, and change this one to quantity. Now, I'm going to grab all of these columns here. I'm going to do a double click on that column separator, and they're auto enlarged. Let me make this bold. There are no marks for formatting, but at this point, the spreadsheet is getting a bit complicated looking. So let's help the examining team with a clearly laid out spreadsheet. And we are going to honor the run wild contract first. So let's do the run wild spike. Then we do the run wild trail. Then we can do the run wild road. Then we will do the regular spike. Then we'll do the regular trail. Then we'll do the regular road. When we're all done, we can get a total in the contribution column. So with a template, I now get busy populating the template, and hours per unit. I can just look in the table above, and this is machine time. So that's 0.2, a 0.3, and a 0.4. Let's grab these and just copy them down. Guys, we have those contributions in the table above, so I can just bring those down here. The total contribution, 29.5 for the first one. Notice I'm in the middle of the spreadsheet. I'm not doing the run wild. I'm doing the regulars first, 29.5. Then I'm going to do 36 for the trail, and 41.5 for the road. And now, again, I'm going to save time. I'm going to remember that the run wild contract, they get an $8 discount. So if we take $8 off the price, we take $8 off of the contribution, as contribution is price minus variable cost. So using the spreadsheet functionality, I just peel an 8 off of that, copy it down. Look at that. Spreadsheet is looking great. I know I'm going to do all of these run wild units, so I can put those there. Now, let's multiply the quantity that we produce by the hours per unit, and we get the hours used for that item in the production run. Hours remaining. We're going to start with 1815. That is the total amount of hours, machine hours we have, and I will subtract from that the hours that we use right there in that row. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with the spreadsheet, because the next row is just going to be equal to the one above minus the hours that we used on the next row. And if I copy paste this down by just grabbing that down, it's going to work out amazingly well, nice and fast, but you got to grab that little box to do it right. Now all we have to do is put in the normal demand, and I look upstairs. The basic demand is 1400 for the spike, 1650 for the trail, and we'll figure out the road in a minute. Now, if we just copy this bit down, we're going to finish our spreadsheet. It's going to look amazing. And the last thing to do here, let's see how many roads we can make with the remaining hours. So I'm going to take the 860 and I'm going to divide that by 0.4 hours per unit, and I see I can make 21,500. That's not the total demand of 23, right? So I'm off by 150. And we can just sanity check that. We can multiply this by 0.4. We use up all of our hours. And look at that. That is our production plan. Last thing to do. Total contribution will be equal to the quantity that we produce multiplied by the contribution per unit. Copy, paste, paste. And we can finish that off with that nice drag. Last but not least, team, the total will be equal to the sum of those contributions per product. And we arrive at the final answer, 26,525. Team, there you have it, A1. None of those steps by themselves are really that difficult. The challenge is to put it all together, to read the complicated story, to lay out your work, and to get this done, in 10 or 11 minutes. So it really takes practice in the spreadsheet. If you look at my table, notice I broke things out quite a bit. I didn't make one formula here for the hours used. I just broke things out variable by variable. I find you go faster with the copying and the pasting then, and we can then reuse this more easily in other places. Team, let's move to A2. A2, a bit tricky here, and they want us to calculate the maximum penalty we would accept if we did the run wild order after the normal production. Guys, that's going to be the opportunity cost, the lost contribution from making a decision. And I can do that quite quickly by just reworking the spreadsheet that I have just created. So for A2, let's see what happens to the total contribution if we decide to do the run wild order last. Let's do our normal production first, run wild last. So I can just grab this whole thing with a copy, come down here with a paste, and I'll rebuild the total at the end. Let me delete that total. Okay. Now, I will very carefully grab the run wild contract with Control X, park it below the normal demand, grab all of this with a Control X, Control V for paste right there. Let's change that normal road demand back to the 2,300 units. Let us now fix the hours remaining column. All we have to do is change that to 1815 minus the hours that we used for the first item. The second one will be equal to the first one minus the hours we use in that row. Now if I copy this down, the last one should be negative if we did it right. And it is, because we don't have enough hours to do everything. So let's change out this last row in the table. We'll make that equal to the hours that are left divided by the hours per unit for a road. And there we go. We have used up all of our hours. We've got our contribution laid out in the same column or format. I grab this. The total, I put it here. 207,725. So that maximum penalty will be equal to the total contribution we get if we do run wild last minus the contribution if we do it first. And we see $1,200. So if we had to pay a greater penalty, it wouldn't make sense to do run wild last. We should do it first. There you have it, the solution to A Part 2. PM team, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please throw down a like, subscribe, tell your friends. And if you'd like more videos without the ads, head over to ACCAexamhelp.com. There you get all my stuff, no ads, and you can join my WhatsApp group. Performance management team, good luck on your upcoming exam.